This is Joe Biden. During his presidential campaign, Biden made numerous denials regarding his knowledge and/or involvement with his son Hunter Biden's business dealings. While Joe Biden was vice president and had been put in charge of foreign policy in Ukraine, his son Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma, a Ukrainian natural gas company. And Hunter, who had no experience in the natural gas sector and probably couldn't even find Ukraine on a map, was receiving $50,000 a month.
What were your qualifications to be on the board of Burisma?
Well, I was vice chairman of the board of Amtrak for 5 years. I was the chairman of the board of the UN World Food Program. I was a lawyer for Boies Schiller Flexner, one of the most prestigious law firms in the world.
Let's go down the list. Hunter was appointed by George W. Bush to a 5-year term on the board of directors of Amtrak because of his father, Amtrak Joe. Then he was on the board of the World Food Program USA because his father was the vice president. And Boies Schiller Flexner is a repository for some of the sleaziest Democrat lawyers on the planet, and none of them have anything to do with natural gas or the energy sector.
You didn't have any extensive knowledge about natural gas or Ukraine itself, though.
No, but I think that I had as much knowledge as anybody else that was on the board, if not more.
If your last name wasn't Biden, do you think you would have been asked to be on the board of Burisma?
I don't know. Probably not. I don't think that there's a lot of things that would have happened in my life that if my last name wasn't Biden.
So was Hunter Biden on the Burisma board for his experience on, well, anything? Of course not. Hunter Biden was on the board because of his daddy's connections. And we know this thanks to the FBI. This is an FD 1023 from a trusted, highly credible, confidential human source who has done work for the FBI for the past decade. In the summary, the informant claims that he spoke to Burisma's chief financial officer, who told him that Burisma hired Hunter Biden to protect us through his dad from all kinds of problems. And one of those problems was Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin, who was investigating Burisma. In another meeting with Burisma's CEO, Mykola Zlochevsky, the informant recalled a meeting that took place around the time Joe Biden made a public statement about Ukraine Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin being corrupt and that he should be fired/removed from office. Zlochevsky replied something to the effect of, "Don't worry, Hunter will take care of all those issues through his dad."
And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't.
So to make sure that everyone is on the same page, then Vice President Joe Biden, who was in charge of foreign policy in Ukraine, had promised $1 billion to Ukraine if they fired Viktor Shokin, the man who just so happened to be investigating Burisma. But the president and the prime minister of Ukraine had not complied.
I said, no, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
So consider the optics. The company where Hunter Biden was serving on the board was being investigated. Then Vice President Joe Biden forced the president and prime minister of Ukraine to fire the state prosecutor who was doing the investigating. Nope, nothing to see here. And consider that Trump was accused of the same thing and was ultimately impeached over it. During a 30-minute phone call between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Trump said, "I heard you had a prosecutor who was very good, and he was shut down, and that's really unfair. A lot of people are talking about that. The way to shut your very good prosecutor down, and you had some very bad people involved. There's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that, so whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into it." Now, the accusation was that President Trump blocked but later released payment of a congressionally mandated $400 million military aid package to allegedly obtain quid pro quo cooperation from Volodymyr Zelensky. You know, kind of like when Biden threatened to hold back money from the Ukrainians unless they cooperated.
Oh, son of a bitch.
So while the Trump impeachment inquiry was taking place, the press, to their credit, did ask then-candidate Joe Biden about the optics surrounding Hunter Biden's seat on the Burisma board while Vice President Biden was conducting foreign policy decisions.
Investigate your son?
Whoa.
Hey, guys, come on. We gotta give him exit.
Wait a second. Not one single credible outlet has given any credibility to his assertion. Not one single one.
But that wasn't true.
Questions about foreign deals his son Hunter Biden pursued
My father, Joe Biden.
in countries where Joe Biden was working as America's top diplomat. In 2014, Ukrainians, sick of corruption, revolted. Vice President Joe Biden went to Kiev to help the new government.
You have to fight the cancer of corruption.
But then, something strange happened. Just 3 weeks later, a Ukrainian natural gas company, Burisma, accused of corruption, appoints Hunter Biden, seen here in their promotional videos, to their board of directors, paying his firm more than $1 million a year.
Now, that ABC News piece ran in June 2019 at a time when journalists weren't all that concerned about potentially hurting Joe Biden's chances in the primaries, as many outlets favored someone else like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders.
Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business. Everybody looked at this, and everybody's looked at it and said there's nothing there. Ask the right question.
So Joe Biden was saying that everybody looked at the correlation between Hunter's work and Joe's responsibilities as vice president and saw nothing. But if that's the case, then why was the press continuing to ask about it?
Here's what I know. I know Trump deserves to be investigated. He is violating every basic norm of a president.
In other words, don't look at me or my family's corruption. Look at the bad orange man.
This is the guy that's unhinged. He is unhinged. Have you ever seen, a rhetorical question, a president ever so unhinged as this guy is?
1 minute later.
I'm not gonna respond to that. Let's focus on the problem. Focus on this man, what he's doing, that no president has ever done. No president.
Sad, really. Anyway, let's take a walk down memory lane and take a closer look at Joe Biden's denials regarding Hunter, Hunter's foreign business dealings, and Ukraine.
I did not know he was on the board of that company. And in fact, no one's asserted on the board that it was illegal for him to be on the board or he did anything wrong.
So Joe Biden claims that Hunter Biden took the seat on the board of Burisma and that he didn't even know that it happened until it was reported in the press. Right.
What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board. I found out he was on the board after he was on the board, and that was it.
So for clarity, Hunter Biden left his board seat in April 2019. And when Joe Biden was being asked about Hunter's role months later, Joe claimed that he still had no idea, which is ludicrous.
Isn't this something you want to get to the bottom of?
No, because I trust my son.
As a reminder, Hunter Biden was kicked out of the Navy because he tested positive for cocaine and is currently under investigation for tax fraud, FARA violations, and for illegally obtaining a firearm. But Joe Biden isn't worried. He trusts his son. Jesus Christ. Anyway, Biden tried to spin the controversy regarding his son's foreign business dealings by making it about Donald Trump.
So you're elected, you're in office. What guardrails would you have to be sure that your son, your brother Jimmy, doesn't do anything to trade on the family name?
They will not be engaged in any foreign business because of what's happened in this administration. No one's going to be seeking patents for things from China. No one's going to be engaged in that kind of thing.
So no foreign business for your
Correct.
relatives in office?
So when there's an appearance of foreign policy decisions being made to benefit Donald Trump's family, it needs to be investigated. But when there's an appearance of foreign policy decisions being made to benefit Joe Biden's family. Again, nothing to see here, guys.
My question is, if it's not appropriate if Joe Biden is president, why was it appropriate when you were vice president?
Well, number one, no one's established that he did anything wrong or that I've done anything wrong. Period.
But that doesn't pass the smell test. Like when you're vice president, isn't there a higher standard? Don't you need to know what's happening with your family? Don't you need to put down some guardrails?
Unless there was something that was, there was something on its face that was wrong. There's nothing on its face that was wrong.
So you think that everything that happened was kosher?
You know there's not one single bit of evidence, not one little tiny bit, to suggest anything done was wrong.
But there is evidence of wrongdoing. First, let's go back to the FD 1023 summary that was mentioned earlier. The confidential human source inquired to Burisma's CEO whether Hunter Biden or Joe Biden told Zlochevsky he should retain Hunter Biden. Zlochevsky replied, they both did. And if Vice President Joe Biden did in fact coerce executives at Burisma to hire his son, then that would mean that he's directly involved in Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings. But wait, there's more. The confidential human source was told by the CEO of Burisma it cost $5 million to pay one Biden and $5 million to another Biden. To be very clear, the CEO of Burisma said that he paid the Bidens $10 million in bribes. The CHS also mentioned to Zlochevsky that he might have difficulty explaining suspicious wire transfers that may evidence any illicit payments to the Bidens. Zlochevsky responded that he did not send any funds directly to the big guy, which the confidential human source understood was a reference to Joe Biden. So according to the confidential human source, Zlochevsky said that he has text messages and voice recordings of Hunter and Vice President Biden as proof that they forced him to pay up. And then he says that he has documents providing evidence that the actual payments were made. Wait, Joe Biden took a bribe? Say it isn't so, Lunch Bucket Joe. Then there's the testimony from IRS supervisory agent Gary Shapley, where he described an interview between FBI and IRS special agents and Hunter Biden associate Rob Walker. Walker went on to describe an instance in which the former vice president showed up at a CEFC China Energy meeting. Walker said, "We were at the Four Seasons and we were having lunch and he stopped in, just said hello to everybody. So Joe Biden just happened to stop by a meeting with Hunter's business partners and Chinese energy officials?" I think Hunter Biden said, "I may be trying to start a company or try to do something with these guys, and could you?" And I think Joe Biden was like, "If I'm around," and he'd show up. Wow, imagine being so unimpressive that the only thing that can improve your meeting is an appearance by Joe Biden. The FBI agent asked, "So you definitely got the feeling that that was orchestrated by Hunter Biden to have like an appearance by his dad at the meeting just to kind of bolster your chances at making a deal work out?" And Rob Walker answered, "Sure." In other words, "Hey, Vice President Dad, could you stop by my business meeting?" "Sure, Hunter, you're the smartest man I know. I'm proud of you." The FBI agent continued, "Did you hear Hunter Biden say he was setting up a meeting with his dad with them while Dad was still in office as vice president?" And Rob Walker answered, "Yes." So when IRS whistleblowers Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler testified in front of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Dan Goldman of New York tried to poke holes in their credibility.
And then you describe a lunch, what we talked about earlier, where Joe Biden came to say hello at the Four Seasons Hotel to a lunch that he was having with CEFC executives, right?
That's correct.
But what you didn't talk about is what Rob Walker said the origination of that lunch was. And you testified that he said that Hunter told his dad, according to Rob Walker, quote, "I may be trying to start a company or try to do something with these guys." Now let me ask you something. That doesn't sound much like Joe Biden was involved in whatever Hunter Biden was doing with the CEFC if Hunter Biden is telling him that he's trying to do business with them, does it?
No, but it does show that he told his father he was trying to do business, and he was
Okay,
talking
well,
to his
that is
father
true. Hunter Biden
about the
does
business.
try to do business. That's correct.
So this smug just admitted that Joe Biden discussed business deals with Hunter and the Chinese. Great job, genius. And the New York Post reports that Hunter Biden's former business partner, Devin Archer, is expected to testify that Hunter Biden would put Joe Biden on speakerphone during meetings with Hunter's overseas business partners.
Curious if the White House and the president still stand behind his comment that he's never been involved and has never even spoken to his son about his business.
So I've been asked this question a million times. The answer is not going to change. The answer remains the same. The president was never in business with his son. I just don't have anything else to add.
So for clarity, Jillian Turner asked if Joe Biden still claims that he never talked to Hunter about his business. And Karine Jean-Pierre said, the president was never in business with his son. And that means that the White House is overtly trying to change the narrative in an attempt to gaslight America when Biden has already been caught in 4K.
I don't discuss business with my son. I never discussed a single thing with my son about anything having to do with Ukraine.
I never talked with my son or my brother or anyone else, even distant family, about their business interests, period.
Anyway, that's it for now. Follow me on Twitter at Don't Walk Run. Be sure that you're still subscribed to the channel. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. If there is a next time.